Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we would do a video today, just kind of talking about some weird and wonky news that may or may not be, which is always the favorite area to kind of like exist in, seeing things before, they're truly here. This was a post on the War Thunder Reddit from Professional Ad 352. Seems like a Swedish guy, and he, plays a lot of War Thunder on console, and obviously is interested in console stuff, so he probably saw this through that. So what are we looking at here? What is this picture? This is a interesting product that is coming out of Russia. And the cool thing about it, in general, is it's a new kind of domestic-made Russian gaming product. But the problem with it is it doesn't exist yet. And also, the other thing you might have noticed is there is a bunch of very old games on here, such as Quake 4, Counter-Strike Source even, and even stuff like Stalker, which right now seems a little bit odd because of the fact that Stalker is obviously Ukrainian devs and there is obviously the whole war going on, so I'm not entirely sure that's going to happen. There's also Minetest instead of Minecraft, so there you go. But the interesting thing, at least from a War Thunder's perspective, is there's a bunch of stuff from Gaijin here. So you got Crusade for WAD, which is Cuisine Royale 2nd Edition, Fulfill of All Dreams, I think is the name of it, which, let's be honest, not a great name. Then there's obviously Enlisted, their free-to-play FPS, and War Thunder. They also have the Daegor engine, which is literally the engine that all of these games are built off by Gaijin. Gaijin owns the engine, they develop the engine, and they develop their games off of the engine, which is actually really cool. And why, they're able to tailor stuff to what they want kind of going forward. So there's also other games here, which are from ages ago, like Doom 3. So imagine a console coming out in 2026, and it has all of these games on. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day, there was these like kind of handheld consoles, which they were always touted to have like a ton of games on them and to do a ton of stuff. And they never did, because the processing power wasn't there, and also the storage wasn't there. And to be honest, looking at this kind of feels like that. Now, obviously, this is in Russian, right? So we can't really read it. The great thing about the internet is there's a bunch of different things that exist, which means it's much easier to be able to read stuff. So this website, if you don't know what it is, it's called Yandex. Now, Yandex Translate. What it does is you can plug in any picture and it will tell you what that picture says. Okay, so if you are struggling reading something, or if you are looking at like a document and you want to see what it says, it's obviously not foolproof. It does make some mistakes, but you'll get a general idea of what the paper says. So this one says the prototype of the game console mini PC based on the Elbrus 2C3 microprocessor, which is a dual-core processor, if I remember. And it says the perspective of Elbrus architecture for game consoles, MCST-JSC is developing a next-generation microprocessor, which seems odd because the 2C3 came out in 2022. So I'm guessing their idea is they're going to build a platform on top of the one that they've already built, but this one is just the prototype, and this is all the games and stuff like this it's going to have. It says games and engines already ported to the Elbrus platform, only the most famous ones listed, such as Poom, which is, of course, Doom. But yeah, so what's ended up happening here is they've taken a bunch of old games and they've stuck them on this little box, and they are going to try and sell it in Russia. Now, you may be asking, why are they doing this? Well, there's a few websites out there, such as Tom's Hardware, which is talking about what's kind of going on in Russia. If you didn't know, Russia decided to invade Ukraine. And because they decided to do that, a bunch of other countries got pissed for obvious reasons. So they ended up putting a bunch of sanctions on Russia. What this means is there is an issue with supply with certain products in Russia. Therefore, what Russia wants to do is they want to start domestically producing these products, which, is something that China does with their economy, something that Australia has tried to do many times because of the area in the world that they are, and the travel to it is a bit annoying. And when it comes to Russia, they are really hammering in the idea that they can do everything themselves. So they're trying to build a bunch of industries from the ground up, which, let's be honest, is not easy to do. especially over a small time frame. One of the major issues they're going to run into with this is the fact that people are getting around the sanctions by pushing products through different countries to then actually trade with Russia. If you actually look at some of the countries around Russia and have a look at how their trade has been the last few years, it has skyrocketed, weirdly enough. It's weird how people just go around these things, and it's so annoying. But anyway, looking at this article, we'll just focus on the product. Basically, what they're trying to do is simple. They are trying to rejuvenate their gaming industry. If you don't know, a lot of Russian devs have just left Russia, not over the last few years, but previously before that. Gaijin themselves are not based in Russia. Many of the other devs that you see as Russian don't live in Russia. They actually live in other places because it makes more sense to live in a place which has less sanctions on you. Therefore, what you can do is you can, well, make more products and also be able to distribute to everybody. You can still cater to the Russian audience without actually developing stuff in Russia. So what the Russian government is trying to do is they are trying to make it so devs and also at the same time game manufacturers or game developers or the actual console guys are based in Russia and therefore benefit their economy. So there was a directive put in by good old Putin in March this year where they're going to start trying to do this. And they want to literally compete with stuff like the PlayStation and stuff like Xbox. And there are plenty of companies that are vying for this. And this is one of them, the Elbrus 2C3 microprocessor mini PC. The whole point of it is to win the government contracts in order to produce it for the Russian people. And that is where this little console has kind of come from. Now, the projections for this thing and for this kind of idea are insane, but that's usually what happens with government projects. And what they want to do, if you can read it right here, so going forward, it would be necessary to ensure sales of at least 20 million units, priced between 500 and 600 each, according to experts, which means to basically keep the keep the console afloat and working. So they need 20 million units sold. And just understand that the Xbox One has only sold 28.5 million units worldwide. So the idea would be for this console to sell 20 million units just in Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. And Russia itself has 140 million people. The ratio compared to how many people are going to have this console to not is insane. So it's not going to work unless it's heavily government subsidized, which is probably something they're going to try and do, but it's not going to go too well. There's also another article about it. This is from Tweaktown, but I've got to be honest, this article screams of AI. Pretty much everything about it is just like a standard like AI article. Even the pictures, like look at this thing. Look at this picture, isn't it great? But basically, once again, they've put out an 83-point program for developing games in Russia. So they're going to try and throw a bunch of money at different companies. They're going to try and incentivize a bunch of people to make games in Russia and also make consoles. And obviously Gaijin, with their roots being in Russia, they are going to be involved in this stuff, even though they're not based in Russia right now, and also are very much an international company. If you have a look at their website, a business is never going to say no to an offer, is probably the way to put it. Now, I started reading through this, and I had a look, and this part got me wondering what's kind of going on. And I think this could also be related, or it's not related to War Thunder, but in the future it will be kind of interesting to see. So Russia hosted its first Games of the Future tournament, right? So this happened this year in Kazan between the 21st of February and the 3rd of March. Turns out, mainly had Russian competitors. Who would have seen that coming? But they used this idea of Phygital. And this is something that many people have talked about for a long time, but generally it's really nice to see. So the idea is to actually mix physical and mental sports together. And this is the website, and I would highly recommend like just going through it because it's hilarious. Just go and have a look at it. Go and see the disciplines, right? They have stuff like Dota 2 Super Final, Battle Robots, MLB and Super Final, Standoff 2 and Laser Tag, CS2 and Laser Tag. And what these events are is you have two disciplines that you fight in, right? So, for example, if you decide to do, let's say, physical fighting and also martial arts, what this ends up happening with, and I'll just put the video on for you, just see. By the way, everything is just crazy AI, like kind of garbage all over the place. But what you do in this, right, is you fight in a video game, and then you literally fight in real life. And they have different weight categories that you fight in, and you do the digital part first, because obviously if you get KO'd, you're not really going to do too well in the digital side of things. And then after that, what you end up doing is you actually have a proper fight. And then you get scores based on each of the kind of positions, and then whoever has the best at the end of it wins, which which is just nuts, right? So there's stuff like this. And then for good old like CS2, right? So you have CS2, but then you also have laser tag. So you have you play some rounds of CS2, and whoever wins out of them, you know, obviously gets the points, and then you play laser tag afterwards. So once again, whoever gets the points, and then whoever has the most points at the end wins. And they have a bunch of these different disciplines, which I think is really, really cool. But yeah, I would love to see this like in the kind of overall setup. Like they have stuff like phygital skateboarding, racing. They have racing. Like how insane is that? But yeah, so this is just something, at least for me, that I've kind of just stumbled upon while looking at this stuff, and I think it would be really interesting to look into. Like you can see here, they're racing in video games and then racing in real life. Like that to me is just awesome. I think in general that is so cool. But also, yeah, it's one of those things that's going to be highly, unfortunately, you know, it's in a place which means not a ton of competitors can go to, and you know, it's going to be interesting to follow from an online perspective, but it would be much more interesting if this was more like an international thing. And maybe one day it could be, but right now obviously that's not going to be the case. The other part is this is the dual core processor that they're using, the Elbrus 2C3. Doesn't look great, I'm going to be honest with you. Doesn't look fantastic. Had a look at it more earlier, but yeah, if there's a reason why it's playing some pretty old games when it comes to the console itself. So yeah, in the next few years, we obviously have that PlayStation VR version of War Thunder coming out, that kind of paid version where you get everything for free, which is pretty cool. And then we might also have this random box which turns up, which also has War Thunder on it. So if this actually happens, I'm going to try and find a way that I can get one of these things to me, because it won't be too hard to do, I don't think, because of how the world works in general, and we'll see what it looks like from the inside. Overall, it's one of those just random things that, you know, happens in the world of War Thunder that is pretty fun to see. As always, though, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.